best we've felt so far. First time back-to-back wins this season, and we want to just keep building on that momentum. And it's fun right now. I think there's a lot of healthy competition everywhere, and the guys are feeling that. And the weather's been beautiful, so looking forward to it.
That's definitely something that has been noticeable. There's a lot of competition. You just alluded to the fact that it's healthy. What breeds that particular type of environment?
I think talent. We have a really talented roster. I also think, numerous times this year, guys have stepped up in different moments, which has put pressure on the next guy. And, like Kihi's a really good example. Comes in, plays 2 really solid games. So I think that lends to it. I think the training environment's the most important. I think it's been a lot better lately, too. I think guys have been bringing it a little bit more, and that helps, too. And then, good performances with guys who aren't particularly in the starting 11 usually or whatnot. These last 2 weeks we've had a different 11, and we've got 2 wins. So, that's putting pressure on guys in a healthy way.
What's been happening in the primary assist zone? Because that's actually been working irregardless of who gets in there. Because that's
I think last couple games with Jesus on that side, he plays a little bit different than Albert. I think Obed's been getting into higher positions, and that's really helped. I think me personally, I've been able to find Obed a lot in that kind of back across my body ball. Him and Christian have had some really good movements and have picked their timing of when to overload the space in the right times. And I think on the other side, the relationship between Kalani and Pedro, and they've found ways to get in behind too. But what's fun is that there's so many different potential relationships right now. A lot of people are healthy. I'm different from Ryan and Georgie and Pedro, and Alex is different from Kalani, and Jesus is different from Albert. We've got all different pieces that fit differently, and I think that's a fun job for Schmetzer to have, and a hard job.
But the one thing it seems like in the last couple of games following up to that is you've had people make run behind defenders.
Yeah.
And how important is that to create all that space?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think we've been really focusing on runs ahead of the ball, and they've been showing us a lot of pictures in games and in training where that wasn't happening, and so continuing that emphasis is going to be crucial as well.
What does it do sort of for the team morale when you're seeing in practice that players can win spots or keep spots through good play and through the way that they actually perform in training, as opposed to feeling like there's a set 11 and it's like once the guy's healthy, he's gonna just step right in?
Yeah, I think it's massive for any environment. I'll talk about my story last year. I think that's a good example of that, and I was fortunate enough to have a manager who was willing to kind of take a gamble on that a little bit. But I think it makes the training environment better, and maybe it doesn't translate to the game immediately, but over the course of the year, as the training keeps getting better and better, and guys know that their spots aren't secured, it's a healthy pressure on everybody.
Have you been on teams where it feels like no matter what I do, I'm not going to get noticed? Or
yeah.
And what does that? I don't know. What does that do when that like if you look at the opposite of sort of how it seems like it is right now, where it's like there is like groups of players don't feel like they can really break in.
Yeah, I think that's really hard. It takes a really strong mind to continue in an environment like that and to not fall victim to that. I think a lot of pro environments are like that. I think especially with some of the MLS salary rules and whatnot, it makes for some really complicated dynamics and politics on teams. And I think it's the player's job ultimately to still find a way to stay motivated. And if you don't, your career is going to be short. But for me, I've had coaches like that, but I've had to find another way to, stay intrinsically motivated and push. And, not everyone's wired like that, but also I think, the best guys are the guys who can keep learning in whatever environment, who you can play with whatever manager, you know, and I think credit to Brian too. Like, you know, he's continued to adapt as well as a manager, and you know, find different strengths of the team. Sometimes it does help to really play your roster and continue relying on the veterans, and he's done that in years past, and we've been really successful too. So,
Paul, your intentionality to cut inside and make the passes did that organically flow? Was that something you looked at film? And I bring that up because the one goal you made the pass to Christian, and then Beppo made that. So can you talk about that?
I appreciate you noticing that. I think I've gotten a bit better at seeing, you know, 5, 10, 15 yards ahead of me with when I do have the ball on the wing and I have a little bit of pressure. I think video's been the biggest component of that, of just like watching the game back and seeing that pass is there, and you know, I don't always have to play the easy pass back to Nuhu or the short 6-7 yard pass, but you know, if I can find that 20-30 yard ball, sometimes it can really open up a team. And I also think we've been better at having a guy in that pocket position on the weak side, and that's been a focal point in a lot of our trainings too, about how can you find the weak side pocket. And so I'm thinking about that more before I get the ball, right? Is that guy open? If I get pressed, can I play that on 2 touches or whatnot? And yeah.
It also opens up, I'm sorry, one last one. It also, the counterplay, it also opens up for the defender. Now the defender's got to guess whether you're going to go inside or go back down the line, correct?
Yeah, and you know, having that intentionality with setting up my guy and, you know, testing him on the line a couple times and showing that I can beat him with pace going that way. Or now, you know, I'm cutting inside, and once you get that guy guessing, that's where, you know, things really free up and are fun.
Coach mentioned in our conversation with us that he was really happy about the way that you took your goal. That ball could have easily been one that somebody else wanted to take another touch, and instead it came to your feet, kind of fumble with it a little bit, and then just ripped it back in.
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence to take that shot?
It's a good question. I think, you know, I wasn't thinking about much in that moment. You know, I was just kind of, you know, I was wide open, first off. And credit to Jesus, he picked his head up before he got the ball to know that I was there. So he hit it. He didn't even have a look at me. He just hit that. And that gave me the time to take a touch. But then I think, you know, in that moment, I'm just thinking, how quickly can I settle it and get in the back post? But, you know, if you start focusing on taking a good first touch, then you're not in a good headspace. I was just kind of flowing in that moment.